Would you like to crush your opponents with the strongest old-school creatures? Do you think you have what it takes to tame the raw power of this aggressive deck? In this video, I will introduce Temur Zoo. I will present its signature cards, as well as some special combinations they may have between them. I will also dive into its main strategy and how it plans to achieve it, wrapping up with some of its good and bad matchups. Let's see how far we can go understanding Temur Zoo. Temur Zoo is an aggro deck specialized in mana efficiency and direct damage. Because of its excellent job at presenting strong threats in the early game and handling opposing creatures or defensive cards with disruption, it can be catalogued as a tempo deck. The most optimal builds of Temur Zoo have around 11 creatures, 24 spells and 25 mana producers. This is almost a 20-40-40 ratio, where 60% covers our aggressive plan and 40% covers its mana cost. This shows how important it is for the cards that we use to be mana efficient, as well as the need of having a higher creature and spell ratio to not run out of gas while pressuring our opponent. But how do we apply this pressure? And how do we ensure winning as quickly as possible? In order to figure it out, let's have a look at its signature cards. The cards that best represent the spirit of Temur Zoo are Kird Ape and Lightning Bolt. They are its most relevant pieces for mana efficiency and direct damage. Having an initial hand with several of these guarantees a strong beginning. Kird Ape is not the only efficient creature in this deck. Its Arabian Nights siblings, Serendib Ifrit, Ernam Jinn, and Serendib Jinn, support the ever-increasing aggression as the game unfolds. They are very powerful creatures that I include in a group that I personally call the usual suspects. If you don't know why already, just click on the link above. Other signature cards that aim to win the game in a completely different angle are Channel and Fireball. They could be deployed as early as in turn 1, although the wisest strategy after that is to overwhelm our opponent with our primary threats, until we find a window of opportunity to deploy the combo and claim our victory. Of course, we couldn't go on without mentioning Time Twister and Wheel of Fortune. The key to constant aggression is to deploy as many threats as possible and continue doing the same, even if the opponent finds a way to deal with them. Draw 7 effects are brilliant in the sense that they replenish our hand, while the damage that the opponent has withstood it stays the same. It is time to see the deck's strategy. As mentioned earlier, Temur Zoo is a tempo deck. Its main strategy is to deliver 20 points of damage as soon as possible, and it's going to achieve it by deploying early threats to immediately start attacking, accompanied by efficient burn spells to deal with early opposing blockers. Once the combat aggression has started, it will watch out to disrupt big opposing plays that break its tempo dramatically, like creature swipers or permanents that prevent it from using its creatures. Since our ability to disrupt is very limited, it is recommendable to let our early threats die to targeted removal, since our response to that will be to deploy our game finishers. After several turns of aggression backed up with disruption, the opponent's life count should be low enough to finish the game with the fireworks. One of the reasons why Temur Zoo does a great job finishing games quickly, it's because it's a precise compilation of the most efficient threats and damage removals in the format, powered by solid draw effects that guarantee constant aggression. On the other hand, Temur Zoo doesn't just win by itself. Piloting it requires a deep understanding of the concept of tempo, as well as being able to foresee opponents' counterplays and stay one step ahead of them. Planning what to do at least 3 turns in advance and calculating the number of turns you need to win is quintessential to determine which threats to play and when. Doing mulligan aggressively is part of this deck's aggressive plan as well. If our initial 7 doesn't have any way to start applying combat damage in the first turns, we shouldn't hesitate to throw it away. A good 5 initial hand is much more recommended than a decent 7 that cannot apply any early pressure. The way to play this deck optimally requires patience and knowledge of the opponent's decklist. If we overcommit resources too early, we may be thrown out of the game by decks whose main strategy is to blow away creature decks. Although asking for patience may sound counterproductive while using an aggro deck, it is patience and patience alone what will show us a clear path to victory. Nothing is more important than keeping a constant flow of combat damage every turn, even if we are just talking about 2 or 3 damage per turn. This will close the game quicker than you expect. But more importantly, it will put a heavy psychological pressure on our opponent's mind, resulting in high stress. Best case scenario, they will lose their cool, forget their main strategy, and start wasting resources into finding desperate answers that could be countered by a timely disruption from our part, resulting in a direct win for us. If you're unsure how to put this plan into motion, just make sure you don't deploy more than 2 creatures at once. Use your burn spells only on early blockers, and counter only the things that completely take you out of the game. The big bodies of your efficient creatures and the powerful draw spells will do the rest. We now know how to play Temur Zoo, so let's have a look at its matchup analysis. Temur Zoo is particularly good at applying early pressure and dealing with small creatures. It also attempts to play the short game, focusing on disrupting early threats only. This presents some advantages and disadvantages against other decks. In general terms, Temur Zoo is favored against decks that present small creatures, little amount of removal, or no early pressure, like Combo. Therefore, its good matchups are Atok, White Winnie, Ernamgeddon, Artifact Midrange, Mono Black, Stasis, Tax Edge, and Underworld Winds. On the other hand, Temur Zoo is disfavored against decks that present a lot of removal, with disruption in the form of counterspells, discard, or colored mana denial. Therefore, its bad matchups are Jeskai Tempo, Esper Tempo, Disco Troll, Izzet Control, and the deck. As you can see, Temur Zoo is a very solid deck, not only because of its raw power, but also because of the nostalgic feeling of playing some of the most iconic old-school creatures together. It's also important to mention that thanks to the Channel Fireball combo, we can steal games out of nowhere from its bad matchup list. Overall, I find this deck very dangerous to play against, and very fun to play with. Because of its constant pressure, it's easy to see your opponents struggle and make mistakes, which immediately gives us a win. In my opinion, Temur Zoo is the best aggro deck in the old school format. Now that you have a general understanding of Temur Zoo, what do you think? Do you see any particular flaw in its main strategy? Do you agree with the good and bad matchups? Let me know in the comments below. It is worth mentioning that the Temur Zoo decklist used in my Deck Tech series was originally designed by Menendian, and I personally consider it to be a perfectly balanced masterpiece that covers the best ratios between aggression, disruption, draw, and colored mana availability. Art made in the form of an old-school decklist. So thanks, Stephen. If you're curious about the details of this powerful decklist, stay put for the next video, where I will present its cards one by one, explaining a little bit more how each of them impacts the game. See you in the next one.